Okay, first, just let me say that I'm writing this from the hospital. I'm okay for the most part, though I can't say the same for everyone. But before I get to the end, let me start from the beginning. The day it really went sideways started out like any other day, really. I showed up at 9, put my lunch away, grabbed a Mountain Dew. Sugar-free Mountain Dew, that is. God, am I grateful for that. I need to cut back on my sugar intake, but I hate Diet Mountain Dew. Shit tastes like total ass. But this new sugar-free Dew tastes only just a bit of. Kind like mountain lighting from Walmart. Anyway, I grabbed my Dew and headed for the dock to see what's going on. The night was running normally. I was told to take care of the electrical today and had only 3 pallets. Not really that bad, to be honest. It looked like most of it was fans and lamps, but there was one pallet that had a shitload of little things on it. You know, things like switches and plugs and whatnot. Anyway, I had just got done separating the pallets into the aisle location when I noticed it was getting close to midnight, and that means I was getting close to my first break. So I left my items where they were in neat little piles all over the floor and headed to the dock to grab my charger. Well, not really my charger, more like the communal charger. I started listening to a whole bunch of new podcasts, and I like to keep my phone as charged as I could. But since I use wired headphones, I really couldn't charge it while I listened to it. I used to have Bluetooth headphones, but I ran over them with my car. Really pissed me off when I found it the next day in a shitload of little pieces all over the road. I know we sell these pocket chargers that use batteries. They're pretty damn cool, to be honest, and I've been meaning to buy one for a while. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, so I charge my phone for the half hour that I take my lunch and the half hour for my second break, which gives my phone just enough charge to last till 6 a.m. when I get done. Well, I had just gotten to the dock. Mike was on the narrow aisle reach track that everyone called the Star Wars. When I asked why they called it that, he told me that it's because it looks like something in Star Wars that someone wrote. Now, with me being that dork that I am, I was totally confused. I have watched those movies 100 times and I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. Maybe someone made a joke once about "May the Forks be with you." Hell, I don't know. Anyway, I said hey to him and went to the office and grabbed the charger that I use when all hell broke loose. The entire building felt like it backed like a wild pony trying to kick off a rider. Power went out, the emergency lights blared to life, things went flying off the top racks. Shit fell over everywhere. I was knocked to the ground and I heard a loud crash and Mike screamed. I got up and checked myself quickly. I was fortuitously fine. I ran out of the office and yelled out, "Mike!" "Over here," Mike replied. I went over to him to find that the Star Wars tipped over. Mike was buried under it, and it looked like a couple of refrigerators that we had stored on the higher shelves fell off as well. Luckily for him though, the tipped-over forklift protected him from the heavy appliances. "Are you okay?" I asked him. He tugged at his foot. "I think I'm fine, but my foot is stuck." "Was that an earthquake?" I asked. Mike looked at me and slowly shook his head. "I'm afraid not," he said sadly. "It's time." "Time? For you to decide," he said. "Decide?" I said confused. "Decide what?" There was a loud bang that made us both duck in alarm as something smashed into the dock roll door. We both looked over at the large, claw-like nail that had pierced through the roll door, as something on the other side of it continued to bang on it, trying to pry it open. It was the thing from the windstorm. Mike turned to me quickly and yelled over the noise. "You have to decide what's important to you. You have to press the button and make the choice." "But," I said, frozen. Everyone is at stake," he yelled. "You have to run." The sound of metal scraping and peeling hit us as other claws started to pierce the roll door. "Run!" Mike yelled one last time, and just like that I was off. "Press the button!" I heard Mike yell after me as I sprinted out of the dock. I turned and ran down the right wall. As I passed the aisles, I can see in the dim lights what looked like hundreds of arms reaching out from everywhere. They came out no longer from just the bottom shelf of the rack, but from every shelf and every rack. Within some of those aisles, I can see that they had a hold of something. I at first thought that they had John or Steve, but then I noticed that those bodies had those cord things coming out of their faces. It was just like that thing I saw during the power outage close to Christmas, and the arms were ripping them apart. I tried not to look at the gory messes as I ran past, but I could hear it. The wet ripping, the squishy plops, and the hard snapping. Dear God, as if I already didn't have enough nightmare fuel in the tank. I ran up to aisle 31, our middle aisle, and it was clear of arms. I had just taken my first steps to run when the garden center's doors exploded. I ducked, almost falling in shock. I looked behind me as the watcher stepped into the store. His eyes focused down on me as he reached out towards me. I was frozen to the spot. I had to move. I had to run, but my fucking feet weren't listening. "Fucker!" Both the watcher and I turned our heads to see John run up and smash a 10-pound sledgehammer into the head of the watcher. The watcher span and fell to one knee, dazed. John looked at me. "Go," he said. "I got a big bad here." "You sure?" I said with more trepidation in my voice than I cared to admit. The watcher started to stand, but John roared and overhead slammed the sledgehammer into the watcher's back, sending him to the floor. John winked. "These old Marines got your back, son." I nodded and took off down the aisle. I reached aisle 1 and had to skid to a stop when the unthinkable happens. The roof over by cabinets groaned and buckled as a large fat segmented tentacle bathed in dark green light broke through and smashed into the ground, shattering all the displays, sending rubble and wood chunks everywhere. This wasn't ever the whole damn tentacle. This was just part of it, like some weird bendy elbow. "Hey!" I looked up aisle 1 to see Steve waving at me. "Get your ass over here!" he screamed. Well, I listened and bolted towards him. "We have to get out of here," I wheezed at him, trying to catch my breath. "Get some help." "Can't," he said, as he threw his thumb over his shoulder towards the doors. "Doors won't open. Besides, I don't think there's anything out there." I looked behind him and out the doors. He was right. The doors were seamless, so though it was just a solid piece. But it didn't matter, because through the doors all I saw was the dark green light and enormous shadows. "Fuck," I hissed, annoyed. "What?" Steve asked. I stood and ran to the elevator. Steve followed me. "What are you doing?" Steve asked. I pressed the elevator's call button. What I fucking have to, it seems. The door slid open and I stepped inside. Steve followed me. "You don't have to," I said to him as I put my finger on the old, worn-out button. There came another loud crash as another part of the roof, I think over my lumber, collapsed. "I'm not fucking staying out there," he said. I shrugged and pressed the button. The elevator doors closed. There was a moment of nothing happening, then a jolt as we started to descend. "What do you think is down there?" Steve asked nervously. "What do you get when you cross an elephant with a rhino?" I asked him. He looked at me as a thin smile came to his lips. "Fuck you," he laughed. That brought a smile to my own. But then the doors opened. A hallway stood before us. A hallway made of old cinder blocks and rusty industrial lights that seemed to work only part of the time, or whatever the fuck they feel like. "Come on," I said to Steve. "I don't think we have a lot of time." We took off down the hallway at a jog. Luckily, we didn't have to go far when the hallway opened up to a gigantic space. It was so large that we couldn't see the top nor the sides, and the only reason we could see anything was because, about 30 yards ahead of us, there was a large open pit that dark green light and smoke issued out of. On the other side of the pit was a statue that stood easily 50 feet tall, give or take a foot. I really couldn't make out what the statue was supposed to look like because I actually couldn't look at it. Every time I tried, my head hurt like it was on fire and eyes burned and teared up. It was almost as if the thing was so alien to our world that my brain couldn't comprehend what it was. The only thing that I could tell was that it was big and that it looked like it was moving. "What is wrong with that thing?" Steve asked. "I don't know," I said back, "but I think we have to get closer." "Why?" Steve asked, horrified. I didn't answer him this time. Instead, I kept my eyes away from the statue and jogged up to the pit. I stopped at the edge and looked over. It was like looking into, well, I honestly can't explain it. It was beyond anything of our world or imagination. And what I saw down the god-forsaken hall was so twisted and vile and foreign that made me spin away and vomited. I can only pray that my mind will one day erase that trauma, because if it doesn't, then my nightmare just became night terrors. Steve looked at me, both horrified and curious. He went to go look, but I grabbed his arm and just shook my head. "Don't," I told him as I stood up and wiped my face. "Just don't." "What are we supposed to do now?" Steve asked, looking around the room, avoiding the statue and pit. A voice suddenly boomed from all around us.
"The chosen one must choose."
"Jesus Christ!" Steve yelled in surprise. "Choose what?" I yelled back into the darkness. "I have no idea what I'm supposed to choose."
"Look at me,"
boomed the voice. Oh God, no. I didn't want to look, but I could feel my head being forced towards the statue. I tried to close my eyes, but it wasn't working. I fought it with everything I could muster. But I knew that I was in a losing battle of wills with a thing older and maybe more powerful than God. My eyes were forced open upon the grotesque statue, and fire erupted in my head. It was as though someone took a hot soldering iron and slowly pushed it into my eye. I screamed as knowledge that no mortal was ever supposed to possess was forced into my weak, mushy human brain. It was only a second, but it seemed like forever until the accursed thing let me go. I collapsed to the ground, curled up into a fetal position. I'm not sure if I did or not, but I think I might have cried out for my mommy. Steve came over to me and shook me gently. "Trent?" he asked. "You okay?" I slowly looked up at him. He looked red. "Jesus, you're bleeding from everywhere," he said. Turned out that being force-fed otherworldly information caused all the orifices in your head to spontaneously bleed. Who knew, right? I know, I whispered. I know what I have to do. I know why the store chose me. I did too. I finally understood why the store had picked me and what was going on. It was so strangely clear. I slowly started to stand up with Steve helping me. I know what I have to do, I told him as I stepped up towards the hall. I heard Steve sigh, but for some reason it was tinged with sadness. I had hoped that you wouldn't figure it out, he said. I turned around to him, confused. What do you... I stopped talking because my attention was solely on the gun Steve was pointing at me. Steve? Steve shrugged. Sorry, he said. I really did like you. And then he shot me. Okay, I'm sorry to leave you at such a cliffhanger, but my pain meds are starting to kick in and I can barely keep my head up. I promise to finish writing what happened next time, but I have to stop for now. Just, if you're married, kiss your significant other, and if you have kids, hug them, hold them tight, and tell them how much you love them. And as always, try to have a Lowe's safe day.